On the 2nd of July, 1937, Amelia Earhart, her navigator, and her plane disappeared somewhere over the South Pacific. Exactly what happened to her is one of the most famous mysteries in the world. I'm here today not in the South Pacific, but in the south of Wales, where I would argue is located the second biggest Amelia Earhart mystery. You see, I'm currently in Pwll, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is a village on the South Wales coast in Carmarthenshire, not far from the major town of Llanelli. And here is a blue plaque commemorating another of Amelia Earhart's famous flights. On the 18th of June, 1928, she became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, landing the seaplane Friendship here at Pwll. But can we be sure that this is where Amelia Earhart landed? Because 2 miles further west, here in the town of Burry Port, there is another monument commemorating Earhart's famous transatlantic flight, and this one states that she landed here at Burry Port, not at Pwll. So which is it, Burry Port or Pwll? Where did Amelia Earhart actually land in 1928? Hi, I'm Fredo Rockwell and I'm back here at Pwll for a moment. Let's try to solve this nearly 100-year-old mystery. Amelia Earhart is a true American hero and is famous for being the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, the first female solo pilot to cross the Atlantic, and for making 2 attempts to fly around the world. And it was during that second attempt that she very tragically disappeared. But today we're looking at that first flight across the Atlantic, which on many levels was not exactly what it appeared to be at first sight. You see, although Amelia Earhart was a pilot, and she was one of the first women in America to get a pilot's license, she didn't actually fly the plane that took her across the ocean on this first transatlantic trip. The year before, 1927, Charles Lindbergh became one of the most famous men in the world by becoming the very first person to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, and Earhart was basically recruited to be a sort of female Charles Lindbergh. She could fly a plane, but only in the normal way, where you look through the windshield and steer the plane based on what you can see. For transatlantic flights back in 1928, though, you had to fly by instruments only, which Earhart did not know how to do. She rode along while a male pilot and male co-pilot flew the actual plane. In theory, as the person keeping the flight log, but in reality, she was just a passenger. To be fair to Earhart, just sitting in a 1920s era plane and flying across the Atlantic while it flew using instruments only is a terrifying thought, so it was certainly a courageous thing to do whether she was flying or not. And also, when she landed, she was very open about the fact that she hadn't flown the plane, saying, "Stultz, the pilot, did all the flying. Had to. I was just baggage, like a sack of potatoes." And then she added, "Maybe someday I'll try it alone." And she did just that in 1932, becoming the very first woman to fly across the Atlantic on her own, which I think is amazingly cool. But for the moment, back in 1928, just flying over the Atlantic as a female passenger was enough to electrify the world. She instantly became one of the most famous people on the face of the planet and went back to America to be in a ticker tape parade and meet President Calvin Coolidge. But back to the point of this video, that 1928 flight. Where exactly did that plane land? And why do 2 different places in Wales claim this honor? The plane that Earhart rode in was a seaplane called the Friendship. And as a seaplane, it had to land on water, not land. And there was no flight plan for this flight. The team just took off from Newfoundland and Canada and headed roughly east and tried not to crash. And they just landed when they saw land without knowing where they had arrived. According to local accounts, the Friendship landed just over in the bay here, just over this hill, and Earhart popped the hatch open and asked someone who was standing nearby on the shore where they were, and that man said Pwll Inlet, which is what they call this, Pwll Inlet. And so that settles things, right? I mean, Pwll is where the Friendship landed. Look it up. You'll find sources that will tell you that. But remember, the Friendship was a seaplane. It had to land on water. It couldn't land on land. And you're going to just have to kind of trust me here, but there's no harbor here in Pwll, not that I can see. There's nowhere where she could easily have disembarked off the seaplane. So the Friendship was towed to the nearest place which did have a harbor, so that Earhart could step onto dry land for the first time. And that place was here at Burry Port. And to commemorate the moment at this lovely harbor, there is another monument, which says, "The first woman to fly across the Atlantic came ashore at this point from the seaplane Friendship." And just in case you had any doubt, here's an actual picture of the seaplane Friendship, a relief picture. Just a few feet away, we find the original buoy that the Friendship was moored to here in the harbor. It even has a plaque that tells you that's what it is. So you see, deciding exactly where Amelia Earhart landed in 1928 depends on what you mean. The plane actually landed in the water outside Pwll, but Earhart didn't get out of the Friendship or step onto dry land until she arrived here at the harbor at Burry Port. If you think this is just some 100-year-old local rivalry that everyone has now forgotten about, think again. Just check out the surprisingly modern-looking information plaque here at the main Burry Port Earhart Monument. It's obviously very recently made. It's very modern looking. It really goes out of its way to airbrush Pwll from the story though. Recapping the story of the landing of the Friendship, it says, "The plane gradually descended, landing in the waters of the nearby Burry Estuary." Burry Estuary? Come on guys, don't you mean Pwll Inlet? From the research I've done, the body of water that the Friendship landed in is most commonly called the Lochor River, or sometimes the Lochor Estuary, or occasionally the Burry Estuary. But the exact place it landed was almost undoubtedly Pwll Inlet. Crikey, I mean, it's pretty obvious the people of Burry Port don't want to share any of the glory of Earhart's landing with tiny little Pwll. So is that all that this mystery boils down to? A petty argument between two communities over local bragging rights? I can't imagine there's much economic benefit. It's not like busloads of tourists are visiting Pwll or Burry Port because of their Amelia Earhart connections. Although, to be honest with you, this is an absolutely beautiful location. You should definitely come here just to see what it's like here on the south coast of Wales. Honestly, come and visit. Neither Pwll nor Burry Port can reasonably claim that they did anything to deserve this honor. The Friendship could have landed anywhere. Ireland, the Isle of Man, Cornwall. It's just sheer blind luck that it happened to land here at Burry Estuary or Pwll Inlet. You decide. Anyway, I wanted to share this little geographical oddity with you. Have we solved the mystery of where exactly Amelia Earhart landed? Well, it depends on how you define landed. But there's one thing that there's no mystery about. Amelia Earhart was cool. Yes, she took part in what was essentially a giant publicity stunt, but she used the fame she won to fund new world record attempts. And she showed the world, the men and especially the women of the world, that she could do what many said could not be done. And I think that's really cool, and I think we could all use a little Amelia Earhart inside of us. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.